Ooh, Fred MacGuffin reviews. Ooh, Fred MacGuffin reviews. With spoilers, I'm going to spoil this. I'm going to spoil Star Trek Picard, Season 3, Episode 3. 17 seconds. Okay, so yeah, this is a very good episode. And guess who's directed it? Jonathan Frakes. Yes, he has. And Jonathan Frakes, he directed one of my favourite Star Trek movies. What was it called? Anyway, it's got the Borg in it, and it's a Next Generation one. First Contact. First Contact. I remembered. Yeah. Okay, they're still getting chased around the nebula by the Shrike ship. Varric is still chasing them, but they go deeper into the nebula and they lose her. So they're getting a little break there, and we cut back then in this episode. I'm going to recap this episode and just talk about it and things I liked and didn't like. So yeah, go and watch the episode and come back because I'm going to spoil this big time. So we have a scene back in the past where Riker's son has just arrived, just been born, and Picard and Riker are in the bar, and they've de-aged Riker and Picard, and it looks great. Very subtle, and it looks well. And yeah, they're just celebrating the birth of Riker's son Thaddeus, and in this we find out that Deanna and Riker got together. I think that's part of the mythos anyway, and later on we find out that Riker's son has died, but we don't find out why or what happened to him. But his son has passed away, and Riker keeps pushing Picard to form a bond with his son and do his best to do that because he's lost his son, and he knows every moment is precious. Inside the nebula, there's electrical surges, and the ship is getting rattled around and beaten around. 7 of 9 has been sent to her quarters for insubordination. She's confined there, and Ensign LaForge comes to see her, and she comes to give her support and say, my father would have approved of what you did because friends are important, and you did great there. And okay, so finally we get the big showdown between Picard and Beverly. And we're beginning to hear, of course, we want to know what happened. Why didn't Beverly tell Picard about his son? Yeah, so this is the showdown, and we're getting Picard and Gates McFadden. We're getting great acting here with Patrick Stewart and Gates McFadden, and yeah, good stuff. They're talking in the sick bay. They're left alone to talk about, what the history of what happened. Casperia Prime, shore leave. Beverly and Picard were on shore leave there, and of course, as usual, Picard gets called back for duty, and she says to him that they kind of knew it was at the end at that stage, and Picard is saying to her, I didn't know I wouldn't see you for years, and he was wondering for years and years what he had done, why she had just cut him off and left him after that holiday they had, and that's when Beverly got pregnant, and yeah, that must have been awful for Picard, that sort of torture about what he did wrong, what did he do, why she left him. So we're going to find out now. This is a great showdown. Finally, we're going to find out what happens and why she dumped Picard, why she dumped a legend. So but she says she's worried about Picard's, of course, duty before anything. He always was called somewhere to help and use his it's Picard, use his skills of negotiation, and so she says she was worried about the attempts on his life, and would it be like that forever? for the rest of his career, that she'd be worried about what would happen to him. Is he going to get killed? All the danger he puts himself in for the Federation. So yeah, that's one of the reasons. And he says to her, if she had told him, maybe things would have been different. Maybe he would have stopped, taking these risks with his life and for the Federation, and he might not have walked away. And Beverly had made the choice for him, and she sort of condemned him before the fact. She sort of thought, he wouldn't change, he wouldn't walk away from his work and his role in the Federation, and she thought he would never change, even for a child. And so she made the decision. She wasn't going to tell him. She just left. And of course, he said to her a lot of times he never wanted a family. He was too afraid to, it might be like his own sort of relationship with his father, which I get the feeling it wasn't too good. I can't really remember the specifics of it, but bad relationship with his own father. So he used to say to Beverly, I don't want kids. I don't want to turn out. I don't want to do that to my kids. And then he gives out to her about he confided in her about his past, and then she used it against him. He's telling her about his bad relationship with his family, and she uses that to rationalize her actions about not telling him about his son. And he says, "How dare you take my confiding in you about my father, about my fears, and use it to cut me out the biggest decision of my life." So yeah, there's great writing in this episode. I really enjoyed this sort of the banter between them, and he begins to think about what could have been had he had known, and what his life might have been like as a father and as a husband. And then he says he knows now he could never have been like his father, and but he could have learned that 20 years ago, or 20 years before, if he had known he had a son and had time to, be a father to his son. And she's worried that Jack would always have a target on his back, but if being Picard's son, but being her son, he was free to, go about his life without that worry and that sort of, weight upon his shoulders. And she says that she knew she could protect her son, but not his. And later we learn about Jack and her and what they used to do for a living, which was bring help to planets, medicines and such to other planets, and that Starfleet had forgotten about. And later, as they're talking, Beverly tells Picard that she did tell and we find out that he's been to school in London. That's why he has the accent, and that she did tell Jack that Picard was his father, but Jack didn't want to go and find him or talk to him. And so we get the impression, and of course he would be angry about this, and as he leaves the talk they have, he walks past Jack and starts saying to Riker, "Look, we need to, this isn't, it's irreparable, the relationship between him and Beverly and Jack and himself." So Picard is not feeling the best after this conversation. He's obviously angry. And after this conversation, we have more action with the warship coming after the Titan, and Riker takes up. Shaw gets injured, and Riker, he gives captaincy to Riker, and Riker is now controlling the ship. And in a funny moment, we have Picard saying, "You can call me number one now," which, if you're a Star Trek fan, you'll get a giggle out of. Back to Worf, and okay, so yeah, really enjoyed that sort of talk between Beverly and Picard. Some great acting there. They really did a great job, the two of them. Very emotional, and yeah, you feel relieved. You know now why she made that big decision, why she made that big choice, and why she hurt Picard so much. And you kind of understand it a bit, but still, it's tough, tough thing to make and tough decision to make. And yeah, very, very emotional scenes there. So very enjoyable. And we go back to Worf and Raffi, and Worf has found out that a human called Titus Rika paid the Ferengi to lie for him about taking the blame for the attack on the recruitment building, the Federation recruitment building. And yeah, so we have Worf and Raffi still on the case, still trying to find out what's going on. They track down Titus, and they find out that he after a bit of what would you say, a bit of strong arming, they find out that he broke into the Daystrom building and stole the quantum weapon. And but they also find out that there's a bigger picture behind this. There's enemies of the Federation that are trying to create a diversion. So it's not the portal weapon that is important. There's something else that was stolen that's going to make an even bigger problem for the Federation. And by the end of the scene, we have Worf and Raffi wanting to go to the Daystrom planet or building and find out what else was stolen. And they also find out that this Titus isn't human. He's a changeling, and the changeling basically dissolves and they destroy it on the ground. So yeah, it's not Romulans. We have changelings as our big bad enemy in this. What else then? So we have Picard and Riker button heads on the deck of the Titan. Picard wants to turn and fight. Riker wants to save the ship. He wants to, he doesn't want to follow Picard's plan. He wants to do his own thing. He wants to hide away from the warship. He doesn't want to, go head to head. But Picard is pushing for a different strategy because his one isn't working, and he wants to do it his way. Now, another thing that happens is, as Shaw is in the sick bay, he says to Jack just before he passes out, and by the way, we find out that he has internal bleeding. That he says to Jack, how's the warship, the Shrike warship, their aggressors? How did they find out about where they are? How are they finding them? Yeah, so Shaw puts that idea into Jack's head. How is Varric finding them? So Jack looks on the floor and sees a trail of blood. He goes to 7 and 9 and says, it's like breadcrumbs and blood in the water. This ship knows everywhere they're going in this sort of nebula, which is a big sort of electrical foggy cloud. And yeah, so 7 and 9 comes up with the idea that there's gas leaking. There's a certain gas leaking that's leading a trail for the Shrike to find them, the Shrike warship. So they go about trying to fix that leak, and as Jack is left there in this room full of toxic gas, our saboteur arrives, who is one of the crew, and has a fight with Jack and knocks him out, and begins to put wrong what he just put right, what Jack put right. So Jack is close to death. He gets found by 7 and 9 and brought to sickbay. Picard rushes to his side, urged by Riker, and luckily enough, Jack is okay. They save his life, and of course, Riker's relieved, or Picard is relieved. And so another thing we find out about, we found out a bit more about this changeling species. Worf talks to Raffi about it, and he says the changelings were once a powerful enemy of the Federation. When the Dominion War ended, there was a schism. A terrorist faction broke away unwittingly to accept defeat. Worf was contacted by a close friend within the link, which is the Great Link. It's got something to do with the changelings. It's a part of their probably philosophy or world, or something to do with their species. And he informed Worf's friend informed him of a rogue group, and if Starfleet were to acknowledge their existence, it would reignite the Dominion War. So that's where we leave. That Worf talks about this to Raffi, and that's where we leave them. They're going to go to Daystrom Station. And another scene, we see our saboteur putting a bomb on the warp part of the warp drive engine. So that leaves that leads to an explosion and leaves the Titan in trouble. It can't warp, so that's not helping Riker on the to deal with the situation. And Picard urges Riker to attack the Titan. Riker decides to do that on Picard's sort of coaxing and advice, but the Shrike is its weapons are too powerful. Basically, they shoot weapons at the Shrike, but the Shrike is able to turn the weapons against the Titan, and the Titan gets badly injured and is out of control, falling into the gravity well that's inside the nebula. And we have Riker being really annoyed that he listens to Picard and says to him, "You killed us all, and to get off the bridge because I shouldn't have listened to you, and you should have just let me do what I wanted to do." So yeah, that's the end of our episode, and it was a great episode. I'm going to give this a 4 out of 5. Really enjoyable episode. Jonathan Frakes did a great job directing this. Great writing again. Special effects top notch. So yeah, really enjoyed this episode. And yeah, you should check it out too. If you're into Star Trek, you can't miss this. It's great stuff. So this has been Fred MacGuffin giving you the guff on Season 3, Episode 3. Fred MacGuffin has reviewed Picard.